You know what I forgot to do, Dave, is light a fire.
Okay.
Because this is
I
ATL on
gotcha.
fire. Keep going.
So I think that, I mean, England was pretty happy with the draw. You could tell that because in the 68th minute, they brought in Henderson for Bellingham, which was really a defensive sub, right? And so they were clearly pretty happy with the draw. The one thing I liked, we had 2 corner kicks in the 58th minute and the 63rd minute.
Yeah.
And we had a pretty nice play going where we had a pick going to get Zimmerman wide open at the back post. And Maguire made a fabulous play to get back and just flick ahead over him because Zimmerman was wide open on the back post. Yeah. So credit to the staff and Berhalter. It was a pretty good corner kick play.
What happened to that defense in the Netherlands game?
Well, I was talking about us offensively, but yeah, I mean, the defense, we're going to talk about that. And I'll give it to you even in this game. So at the end of this game, right, against England, right, he brings in Shaq Moore instead of DeAndre Yedlin. And Shaq Moore is supposed to be a better defensive player than Sergiño Dest, right? And I could not believe it. You come on as a defensive right back sub with 10 minutes to go, right? In a 0-0 game against England, it's clearly to kill off the game. And he's flying up the down the right side like it's the 3rd game of the MLS season.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world was he thinking?
And Dest was playing really good defense, right? In that game, Dest stayed back the whole time, right? So we always had 4 back because we had, basically Tyler Adams, the 2 center backs, and Dest always back. And Jedi was the one that was bombing up.
Jedi was really, really forward. But there is a moment with about 5 minutes to go, basically in extra time against England. Jedi is already way up the field, and Shaq Moore goes flying up the field. And at that moment, they left the 2 center backs alone in the back in a 0-0 game against England. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for continuing to go and try to get the goal, but that's reckless.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really just reckless. And Shaq Moore showed he was out to prove something, right? And you got to be a team player. You got to know your role. If you're not the starter, you got to know why are you there. If you're going to get in the game, it's because he believes that you're a better defender than Sergiño Dest, or maybe he's tiring, maybe he's had injuries or whatever, but you're there to come in and kill the game off.
Yeah.
You got to have some awareness of that. I mean, I thought it was really, really awful.
Yeah. It was squeaky bum time at the end there too.
It was real nail biting time. Yeah. So
what else on the England match? Anything?
I think that's it. Overall, it was a terrific performance, a 0-0 draw. We got to be happy with it.
And really felt after that game, you felt like there was such a lost opportunity in the Wales game. That really settled in. You're like, man, why didn't we win that game? Should have found
in retrospect.
In retrospect, should have found the second goal.
But in fairness to Berhalter, it's the opening game of the World Cup. You don't know that Wales isn't going to turn out to play all that well, and for it to be a bit cagey affair, we were a little unlucky. I don't think that's terrible, with the exception that we're going to talk about how I never thought through all of qualifying and all of this tournament, we never really had moments where we were full throttle offensively. We never had moments where we thought our young guys are just going to threaten you all the time. And I think our team is good enough for that. And I think that falls on Berhalter, that we never found an identity. Now, sometimes you have that identity and it doesn't come through in the big stage in the World Cup. Maybe England snuffs it out or whatever, but I didn't really think we ever had the opportunity to be full throttle.
Do you know why?
I think I do.
It's because Gio Reyna and Aronson were not on the field.
That's one reason, yeah.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
Aronson, every time the guy comes in the field, it's positive. And I know I talked about it weeks ago before the World Cup, but what do you think about the fact that Gio Reyna got so many few minutes?
Well, it makes perfect sense to me once you become 100% committed to having a striker in the game. So if you're the U.S. and you're 100% committed to having a quote-unquote true striker in the game, Even with 3 forwards, that leaves 2. Pulisic's going to be on there all the time. You got to figure, right? He's the elder statesman in the group, if you will.
You're not going to take Weah off.
And Weah really, well, you could have. You could have imagined that Weah could have been beaten out, but he ended up being the guy who got the first chance, and he really took it.
Yeah.
Right? And he was good during qualifying. So when you have that, by definition, you can only get 2 of those guys on the field. Now, obviously, if you are, for example, Brazil, and you have 6 center forwards or whatever, you can't put a formation in to have 6 forwards playing on the field at any one time. So there has to be a limit. But with a front 3, you could have had 3 of those guys in the game at times. Maybe not against everybody, because as I felt in qualifying, the times when the square peg through the round hole of putting Sargent or Haji Wright or whoever, Ferreira, all the guys who in there, Pepe was in there for a while, when that worked was against the lesser teams. They really helped us break down the lesser teams because we were getting so many crosses and all kinds of things. They were scoring goals left and right.
Yeah.
But any time in qualifying, and the same thing happened in the World Cup, that we played a really good team, they just disappeared. Yeah. And so in my opinion, this team, you have to actually have a better way of attacking, and I keep talking about it. We'll get to it in a minute. But the other thing is there is no reason why you can't have a formation with 3 of them in the game. I think we talked about it, but Pulisic could have been the true false 9 in the middle. Yeah. And then you have 2 of the other guys outside. It's Weah and
Gio or Aronson,
right? And you have a backup guy who you can, sometimes if you put your 3 best strikers in the game, you have nobody to bring off the bench, but we had 4 of them.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about had you started the way we wanted to with the false 9 concept, you're putting the horsepower of either Reina or Aronson on with Weah and Pulisic. I mean, it's all your horsepower, and you still have one of those in the stable, on top of Haji and Sargent as powerful forwards. If you want to if things aren't working right and you got to change it up and bring them on as a change. I like going that. I would have rather seen that type of philosophy. Now we made it out of the group stage. Holland was always going to be a tough game.
In the England game, though, I mean, if you're John Stones and Harry Maguire, right, you had to be, laughing out loud saying, they put in Haji, a guy who's big and strong and physical, against 2 guys who are even bigger, strong and physical. And they're like, we love that. We just don't want to see Reina and Pulisic and Weah interchanging and confusing and having them in space running at us. We don't want to see that at all. Right? I mean, Maguire is no longer a starter at Manchester United because every time they freaking play against Man City, they've got 4 guys interchanging whatever, and Maguire is like, where'd he go? Right? I mean, he just can't handle that.
Yeah.
But that's what we could have done to them.
So we go into what is always going to be a highly charged game against Iran.
Right.
And that was on, what day was that, a Tuesday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, on the back deck with folks cheering on the U.S. It was awesome.
It was
First
great.
off, it's just so much fun to watch.
Good weather,
watch the US
good game.
play.
Yeah, I mean, it was living.
It was living. It really was. And again, I think the only change there was instead of Haji Wright, we had Sargent, right? And
there's a second change.
The second change was Vickers versus
Cameron Carter Vickers.
Yeah, that was the other big one. And you're like, we don't have a problem with Vickers, but why now? Why play that curveball with? I mean, you're kind of gambling at that point. The game will work because he looked fabulous, but it was a gamble.
He played really, really well, but I still think in a game, and great, to have another guy. And the moment that Robinson went down, the moment he did in the Atlanta United game, right, when he clearly tore his Achilles and he was clearly going to be out, that is the moment that if you're Berhalter, you're like, I have to find a number 1 other center back. He should have tried Tim Ream. He should have tried Cameron Carter-Vickers. He didn't try either of those guys, right? And yet there they were in the World Cup playing for the first time. So that is a huge indictment. He never got that right. And I think nobody's really going to talk about it, but I am. I think that it cost us. And I'm going to hopefully try to prove it to you with the highlights in the Dutch match.
Okay. So, Iran. Again, we played very well, though.
We started out really well.
And we end the first half with the goal that you want always before halftime. The pressure was coming. Like, you knew a goal was coming. It was like one of those moments. Goal's coming. Sure enough, ball comes across. Pulisic does what he does. He does great at crashing into the box. I've seen him do it a million times at Chelsea. And
he's great at making that late run in the box.
Oh, so good at it.
Right? And this is why he could be a false nine, because he can make a run through the box and he can finish. He showed that. And that goal and this game, to me, was all about the magic of Sergiño Dest. And I'm going to say it now because I'm going to turn around and probably critique later, particularly him and Jedi. But the magic of Sergiño Dest, and maybe all right backs in all of world football right now, is going forward. And Sergiño Dest is particularly good at it. Yeah. And he makes an absolutely stunning run into the box. Weston McKennie finds him. He ends up in the 6-yard box, heads it back across for Pulisic to score.
Yeah.
So, I mean, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I thought Dest in that game was lights out. Yeah.
And that is what he is made for, because so Sergiño Dest is really clever in spaces. He's good on the ball. He's got 2 good feet. He can score a goal. And when I think, to be honest, he's made to be an attacking midfielder, if you will. But what makes him so dangerous and what makes that such a dangerous role as a right back is when he's doing that from right back, there's nobody accounting for him, right? Yeah. Because if you're the England back line, if you're Luke Shaw, right? Luke Shaw is already preoccupied with taking Weah, our right of the front 3, right? So now if Weah's doing some run and he made a sort of run underneath, Sergiño Dest is showing up. The guy who's supposed to be tracking Sergiño Dest is their left midfielder, right? So, it's a Saka or I don't even know who was playing left midfield for them at that point. But, that is a huge advantage. And Sergiño Dest is going to win that battle every time. It's really, really good. Yeah. Right? There's a flip side to it, which we'll get to.
All right.
And I want to say that the other thing about this game is that Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams breaking up counterattacks in this game was a one-man. He literally just stuffed Iran in their own end for 75 minutes.
It was a game-changing type of performance by him. I think that was the one that gets him on all the interviews. He's solidified himself as the captain of the U.S. men's national team. Yeah, he was pretty much flawless throughout the World Cup.
Did you see his interview with the Iranian journalist?
I heard about it. I didn't see it on USA Today or whatever when they're interviewing Tyler Adams about that. It's just guys.
Carmen, did you see this?
Nothing but class.
I saw his response to the big question. I didn't see the whole thing.
So,
big question.
You want to tell me about it, or you want me to tell you about it?
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
So the Iranian journalists are like, we've had a lot of people attacking Iran with all of the stuff that's going on. There was this woman killed. There's been all kinds of protests, going on in Iran.
And mind you, this is also after the social media snafu by the U.S. soccer.
U.S. soccer took the Arabic off of the flag, right?
They took the IR off of.
So anyway, so this journalist was clearly put there. He was pissed, whatever. Anyway, he went right after him and said, basically, who are you as the U.S. to criticize it? Here you are, a black athlete, for the U.S. And the U.S. first he said, first of all, you're pronouncing our country wrong. And Adams was like, that's great. You're telling me that, and I apologize.
Yeah.
And
perfect answer. Just crushed it. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't mean to.
Is it Iran or Iran? Or
he was saying
Iran,
and I think it's Iran or something.
Yeah, it's definitely not Iran, I ran to the store. It's like
anyway. And then he's like, you're criticizing us, but America has this horrible track record with people who are black, and don't you think it's just as bad? And he was like, all of the world, including the United States, has room to grow.
Yeah.
We are certainly not, perfect by any means. And all we are trying to do is continually make ourselves better.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And it was
It was it was pitch perfect
Yeah.
because he cited that he has traveled internationally.
Yeah.
He's been,
He
it
seems
was
like
fantastic.
It seems like he didn't even need the media training for that. Like that's just how he is.
just
Like,
Right.
I thought that was so awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of great.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a perfect player.
So we finished the first half 1-0. Christian Pulisic tries to come back on. He does for a few minutes, right? And that was in the
dreaded pelvic injury.
a contusion of the pelvic.
Yeah,
region.
never heard of that.
Yeah. I've had that similar type of thing right here at the top.
You have?
Yeah, right
Wow.
there. Yeah.
Is it bad?
It
I've
hurts.
never heard of anybody having that.
It hurts.
And here you are. You've had one.
Yeah.
Found him.
Wow, we found it.
You never been hit right on that kind of pointy part of the bone right there? I mean,
No.
Yeah.
I'm too clever for that.
Hurts. It
To
hurts.
stay out of the fray, unlike Mikey Dobbs, who's really in the middle of the fray.
But you could tell by his face, like he was in pain.
Yeah, it wasn't
Oh,
good. It
he
wasn't
was
good.
hurt.
He was hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so wasn't able to return, and we finish out the game.
Yeah, I have notes. So Jedi was awful, taking touches forward. I mean, 3-4 times, maybe 5 times, he just let a touch get away. He seemed
Yeah.
like he was amped up,
Yeah.
and he just kept dribbling the ball to the other team. It was terrible.
Yeah, but there's the balance of being a little too on the back foot against an Iran who's going to come at you the second half. You can understand why people are amped up, and I think to some degree, that's part of the reason we were able to close that game out. Is everyone was amped up to finish that game.
So the subs. Right.
The
So he
subs.
brings Walker Zimmerman on.
Yeah.
Everybody's wondering whether Walker Zimmerman was fit to go. He
and
clearly was.
and
'cause he came on.
He was fabulous when he
He
came on.
was terrific when he came on as a third center back. Yeah. He brought on Shaq Moore for Dest, and he was terrible.
Yeah, he was terrible.
I mean, he was.
And Dest again was having the best game he's had. I thought he's really hitting on all cylinders in that game. And I'm like, why are you taking him off? He's playing great defense.
Yeah.
He was good defensively.
He was just like he was amped in the right way. He was like game on.
It's almost like when he got to AC Milan or someone's like, yeah, you know how you go forward all the time?
Yeah.
You're going to have to defend too.
Yeah.
And somebody in the last, month or whatever has taught him that.
Yeah.
And when I don't know what the coaches instructed him for the U.S., but he had a really excellent balance of both defending and attacking in this tournament. He was absolutely terrific.
But I mean, Adams was great. Musa was great in this game.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought Dest particularly was having a great, and he was amped too. You could tell.
Yeah.
He was. So that's what I mean by like there were some players that were amped and it was working out for them. With Anthony Robinson, maybe was doing some things that were a little foolish, but overall, I think it paid off.
Okay.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah,
It did.
no, I mean, we got through, right? So
how about Matt Turner throughout this tournament?
he was inch perfect, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he made a mistake the whole time, right?
I tweeted on our account that, if he could only play the 9 position, we might have won this thing.
Now, in fairness to him, he's just ruined his career, right? Because
Yeah.
that was the last game he's about to play for the next 6 months. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have any questions on the live stream, Carmen?
Well, Elliot has joined us.
Oh, all right.
We have a question that we can get to, I guess, once we're done talking about the U.S.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks like he's agreeing with most of
right.
what y'all said. A little bit about Jedi and the game and about his touch and that type of thing. So
No.
What else on the Iran finish?
Well, so I think, if you had told us, 2 ties and a win, I would have said, 5 points historically for sure gets you through.
Yeah.
And it did get us through. And that's a pretty good performance. We had a tough group. Like it wasn't like a group of death, but it was a tough group.
Yeah, I looked at all there was no real group of death.
No, they did a really, really good. They changed the system for how you make the groups this year, and it worked out way, way better.
Yeah.
All the groups were good.
So we are on to the knockout round.
And I was hoping for a miracle because keep in mind that the result that went our way initially, right? Argentina loses its opening match, right?
Yeah.
So if Argentina had come back, which they did in the second game and win, they beat Mexico, right? If they had gotten a draw in the last match, which was pretty good because actually Poland and Argentina at some point could have settled into a draw because both teams would have gone through in that case. Right. Which they didn't happen because Argentina jumped all over and scored 2 goals. Right. But if that had happened, Argentina qualifies as the second team and we would have been playing Poland. We would have had Poland and not Argentina had we beat the Netherlands. So it was setting up like it was going to be really good, but it didn't happen.
So I wasn't too disappointed with going up against the Netherlands, and I felt like the first 10 minutes of the Netherlands game was why I thought that, which is we should have put the game away in the first 10, 15 minutes or gotten our goal because we were outplaying them. It was almost like the Netherlands weren't even involved in the game or cared about the game, and they lulled us into exactly what their master plan was, and we couldn't get it done in the first 10, 15 minutes.